All right, we're going to finally call the January 2020 meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission to order. Paula, would you call the roll?
Alan Brown.
Present.
Taylor Fudge.
Present.
Mary Jo Meacham. Klaus Ryman Phillip.
Present.
Linda Schultz. Present. Ann Zacharitz. You have a quorum.
Okay. All right, I'd like to first go over the procedure for the meeting that's on the back of the cover page of your agenda. The chairman will announce each case and ask interested parties to indicate their presence by raising their hand. Commissioners will discuss details of the case, calling on staff for details. Following this discussion, commissioners may choose to ask questions of parties present. Interested persons may speak to support or protest the application. The applicant will be entitled to one brief rebuttal. Interaction between applicant and protestants on the floor is not permitted. Persons speaking are asked to approach the center podium one at a time to introduce themselves by name and address, and also sign in, please, and to present their position as succinctly as possible. The Commission asks each speaker to limit his or her remarks to no more than 5 minutes. Following the public hearing on an application, the Commission will take one of the following actions. 1, approve the certificate of appropriateness. 2, continue the proposal. 3, deny the proposal with prejudice, which means the application may not be resubmitted for at least 1 year unless the Commission determines that circumstances have changed. Or 4, deny the proposal without prejudice, which means the applicant may reapply at any time. When an application has been approved and after a 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the CA to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA has been issued. Contact HP staff for final design review inspection or to withdraw items that will not be completed. And finally, any person aggrieved by any decision granting or denying a CA may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the Commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the BOA. Okay, with that, let's go on to item 2 from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer. Katie?
The only thing I wanted to note was a reminder that we have our Commission Committee training coming up January 31st. That'll be across the street in the Civic Center, Hall of Mears, for all of our design review committees, our Arts Commission, Planning Commission. So I'm sure you've gotten an email from Paula at this point, but just to remember to attend that.
I don't think I've received that, but put it down, the 31st. Okay, on to code enforcement, minutes, excuse me. 3, acceptance of minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any comments, corrections, or motion for acceptance?
I'll make a motion for acceptance of the December minutes.
Okay. I'll second. The moved by Klaus Ryman Phillips and second by Taylor Fudge. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, the minutes are accepted. On to code enforcement report now. Okay. Katie, any comment on this, or anybody from the city?
I don't believe we have anyone here from the city to speak on this, unless anyone is that I don't know. But just a refresher that this is a list of things that have received a notice of violation or that have proceeded to a citation. You can look up those citation numbers with the Action Center or contact our staff if you have questions about any of these.
Okay, thank you. So, continuance, announcements, and requests, look like none. Public hearings, consent docket. Did you have something you wanted to add about that?
Yeah, item, let's see which one. Number 5 on the consent docket, the pool and pool equipment has actually been administratively approved, so we can strike that from the consent docket.
Okay. Is it that be moved or anything, Rita? Just, okay. All right, does anybody like to remove one for consideration, or is there a motion for approval of the consent docket?
I'd make a motion to approve the consent dockets, cases items 1 through 5.
Actually, through 4, because 5 was struck. Is that correct?
1 through 4?
Yep.
With 5 being struck.
Okay.
I'll second.
Moved by Taylor Fudge and seconded by Klaus Ryman Phillip. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, the consent docket is approved, and if you're on the consent docket and you're here, you can leave now. You've been approved, so. But you're welcome to stay. All right. Next, on to items D, cases for individual consideration. Katie?
HPCA 19-114 at 634 Northwest 20th Street, Mesta Park Ward 6, consideration of possible action on application by, it's actually Carrie Adams, for John Adams for certificate of appropriateness to number 2 relocate fence, elective. And I'm going to pass down, we realized as we were going through the packet today that you guys were missing some photos that they had sent in of their backyard and other fences along that same side street up and down the row. So you can take a look at that as we review the case. This property has been before the commission several times for a variety of different projects. What's in front of you today is a proposal to bring the fence on the west side of the backyard out from the back corner of the house toward the sidewalk to create more of a fenced-in side yard.
Is the applicant present? Okay, if you would come to the podium and introduce yourself. They're actually wanting to take the fence to the property line, isn't that correct? According to their site plan, or?
The goal is to bring it all the way to the sidewalk, correct?
The goal is to bring it all the way to the sidewalk. John Adams, by the way.
Okay, and your address and if you sign into.
Yes, 634 Northwest 20th.
Okay.
The goal is to bring it all the way to the sidewalk, and we've talked to our neighbor Pam, whose house you see right adjacent to ours there, about doing that. And again, that would be an exception. But if we can't bring it to the sidewalk, we'd still like to bring it to at least 2 feet away from the sidewalk. And then the fence itself would only come; it would be less than halfway toward the front of the house. It would actually still sit behind that bay window that's about halfway up the house.
On your house, yeah.
Correct.
How does the proposed, right there, how does the proposed fence align with, looks like it would be partially coming out in front of the wall of the adjacent house?
Yes. It would come out in front of it, and so that's why we've talked to Pam about this since we moved in, and I think she provided a letter. If not, I've got
We did?
several
Yes,
copies
we've got
of
a
it.
copy of a letter in the attachments at everyone's seats that is from that neighbor to the south in support of their proposal.
And is this the fence that you're proposing to put in? It looks like in the site plan that it is sitting a couple feet off of the sidewalk. Is that's what it looks like in the?
Yes. So we had originally submitted that, and if we could get it approved to come to the sidewalk, we would do that. But if not, we would set it off 2 feet from the sidewalk.
Okay. I'm more comfortable with the 2 feet off the sidewalk, just personally, but I don't know what the other fellow commissioners are.
Yeah, and the real reason we decided to go ahead and ask for it was, if you look, you can kind of see in the house that's to the north there, but also several houses along the south. This would actually probably be the only fence that's not up against the sidewalk. So there's several going both north and south that are up against the sidewalk there. So again, that's why we decided to go ahead and request it. So.
And I did drive up and down the street just today, actually, because we talked about fences being along the sidewalk. There are several examples as you go north and south all through the neighborhood of fences that are all the way at the sidewalk, some that are sitting on kind of little concrete curbs that look quite old, some that look new, and I did not take the time to look up address by address and verify which ones had been approved or not. And then there are others where the fence sits well off the sidewalk. So we definitely have a mix of conditions. I think from a guidelines perspective, perhaps the larger concern is the fence coming out forward of the neighboring front porch and obscuring those views. But
Setback line or the building line?
This is not a see-through fence. It's a wood fence.
Correct. It's proposed to be the same material as the existing fence.
And what's the height?
6 feet.
The guidelines say a corner lot should have a transparent fence. So,
Right.
and I think that there is adequate reason for that. It's historically been a standard that we've enforced. And part of it, of course, is to keep the openness from the sidewalk, because when you're walking along a sidewalk, if the entire block is 6-foot fences, it's a totally different impact on the neighborhood than corner lots where you can see. And I mean, that all has a historical reference. So for me, if it were a transparent fence, if it were iron or whatever, then I would sort of start considering how important it was if it was 2 feet or 1 feet or.
Yeah.
But to have 6-foot fences down the block on the sidewalk is material for the impact on feel of the neighborhood and its historic
Actually,
sense.
I don't know if any of the existing fences are see-through. There's maybe 1 or 2 that I've seen that have they'll be wood with like an iron gate or something, but none of the other fences going to the north or the south have the see-through or are the see-through fence. So that same wood. So.
Katie, this handout you just gave us, are these photographs along that street, the fences?
Yes, those are pictures that the applicant provided via email of fences up and down, now I'm forgetting what street we're at, Lee. Is it Lee or Francis? That's the side street.
Lee.
Lee. To the north and south of their house.
To me, it's either, I don't see the point of leaving a 2-foot strip, it's just something you have to mow, so it's not so close to the sidewalk. It's kind of whether it's allowed on the property line or to go out to the sidewalk. But then the transparency thing, I hadn't.
I think that's a good point. I generally agree. It's kind of nice to have, the house visible on a corner lot like this. Although I just took a look at the site plan again, and it looks like the fence does stop. I guess that's the 60% back or whatever that percentage is. So like those bay windows are exposed. I think that one tree will be outside of the fence.
Right, it has to be set back at least 40%, and I think they're well beyond that 40% requirement just because of the bay window and things that are in the way.
So I actually think, personally, because there is a documentation of this condition all along the street, and because it stops well past that bay window and other kind of significant kind of architectural features, personally, I don't have it.
Except that the fences don't really, there's a purpose, and that is not so you can see the house, but it is to maintain the openness of the district. So whether or not someone else did it or not, I'm not sure, is something that should guide us going forward, because we're not sure exactly how a lot of things happened. I just know that it makes a big difference in terms of the way the neighborhood feels and its historic feeling to have those corner lots much more open.
I tend to agree with you in terms of,
It's right.
I guess, just practically speaking. In this one, we've seen this house several times now, and there's a lot of unique circumstances with it. So this is one that I can get on board with, not having that see-through fence, and again, kind of pushing it wherever we want to, whether it's on the sidewalk or 2 feet back. But because it sits within that setbacks, and since the neighbor agrees to where this fence is going to be placed, I'm pretty comfortable with.
Well, though, that we're making a decision not for just this neighbor, but for neighbors from now on.
Yeah.
Which is a little harder. And what's the city's setback on those?
I don't know if there is one on
It might be on the property line. I'm not sure. Maybe Alan knows better, but I think it might be the property line.
the front. There's setback on the side, I think. I just don't know on a side street. I'm not sure. I know there's an additional building setback. Yeah, it's different.
Depending on what the plat says about what the setbacks
Do you know? Have you
are.
talked to the city? You don't.
I mean, I think the HP, and Reedy could maybe confirm this, would take precedence over, if we approve it here, that is kind of the zoning
I don't think so.
for that, is it not?
I think you still have to,
He still has to get a fence permit.
Yeah.
And if it
Oh, okay.
doesn't meet the zoning requirements
Yeah.
there, they won't issue.
They wouldn't issue it?
it's the other way around.
Gotcha.
They trump us. So
Gotcha, okay.
I
So with
think-
most things we trump, but with fences, they trump.
No, they take into consideration what we say.
Yeah.
So they're much more likely to give a variance if we have weighed in one way or the other, I believe, is what really happens in real life.
The permit counter won't be able to give the variance.
That'd be Board of Adjustment.
Yeah, that would be the Board of Adjustment. But the fence counter will see whether or not a certificate of appropriateness has been approved by this body. And if it has, and if it meets the rest of the requirements, then they'll give a fence permit.
I believe in the past I've seen fences that were beyond the property line just have to come through and get a revocable permit because they're
Right.
technically in the right of way.
Right.
I know they can go up to 8 feet in height on the side outside of HP, and we hold them to 6 feet. And I know there are requirements citywide for fencing in front yards and the height of fencing in front yards. But as far as I'm aware, there's not a requirement for a setback other than if you're over your property line, you need a revocable permit.
right. So you will need that if you go to up to the sidewalk. So we're really looking at more impact on the neighborhood and appropriateness from the guideline standpoint. You've got 2 trees right there. I was looking at one of the photographs, and Paula, could you go flip the photographs? One more from the front. Right there. Go back one. I mean, they're already kind of blocking this view in a way. I think that's kind of a mitigating thing too, that, I would actually prefer it was on the property line instead of to the sidewalk, but I don't think it needs to be transparent, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do too.
I think it's kind of tough on this. We have the guidelines, but historic neighborhoods are so unique, and, every street has its own specific characters, so it's always kind of a mix between what the guidelines say and what the adjacent neighborhood's doing, in my opinion, and, if there's
Then
a
if the
clear...
adjacent neighborhood was doing 10-foot fences, would that be? I mean, that's where I try to stay consistent so that people know what to expect. And I do know that consistently corner lots have had transparent fencing until very recently.
Transparent fencing?
Probably, because then it just goes right into the backyard.
So you're looking more for the privacy aspect of it?
Yeah, we were planning to put a table right. That's really the only reason that thing fits in the backyard right now. It's all stacked up on top of itself, kind of waiting. But so it would mostly be so that people can't just right into the backyard.
Would you be opposed to putting on the property line?
No.
I just wondered where those trees, the north tree or the south tree, where that's located. If you put it on the property line, would it be inside the fence?
Yes.
Then you wouldn't have to get a revocable permit. That'd be sort of,
I mean, even though you'd have a little strip to mow there, that would kind of open up that sidewalk a little bit, wouldn't feel as enclosed.
will be more than 2 feet. I don't know what the scale is here. It looks like it'd be about 4 feet
Maybe 4 feet.
back. That's a little bit more.
Right, because that front tree, I think, would be outside the fence regardless because of where the fence
Right.
ends on the side. So.
Right, I just wonder if that fence was right on the property line or not, the tree to the south.
Yeah, it looks like the property line basically splits that yard between the house and the sidewalk directly in half.
Well, that dark
Motion's up.
line on the side plan, that's the overhang, so I think there's a little more yard. You see the dashed line where the building line is?
Yeah, I'm looking at this side plan. I don't know. Looks like that.
That's the overhang, so the building line's right there.
Right. Okay, so it's a little bit
Yeah,
farther
it's a little
out.
bit- So it's a little more space. Yeah. Okay, well,
So it would be the property line and not the 2 feet?
that's what I'm asking. I think that would be a little bit more open. kind of give you still a side yard, and since it's hidden, to me, somewhat by the trees, it could be solid.
And that's a good compromise. You avoid a revocable
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
property line, so.
Yeah, how far back is the property line then?
It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
There's a dimension on the south from the property line to the building. There isn't one.
If this is scaled
On the
correctly,
west.
there's, looks like 4 feet from the back fence to the back of the
Wall,
house, and it looks like that's maybe,
4 feet or something from the sidewalk.
yeah, so I think the property line to the side of the house, that's got to be at least 6 feet.
Looks like at least six, yeah.
You know, maybe even
Yeah,
more, like
probably
8.
6.
So,
right.
yeah.
6 feet from the house, sort of.
So that'd be, you know, enough room, I think, to store, you know, if you have a lawnmower or whatever else you want to, I don't know what you're planning on putting there, but.
What is that little tiny note on there say? Can you read that?
Oh, that's just some of the circles.
Oh, okay. All right, so is there, sounds like we might have a agreement.
Is that something you would be open to, the property line?
I mean, at that point, you don't really gain anything being that far,
So
or
you,
that close to the house. It's
About 6
similar
feet
to how
from
it
the
is in
house
the
is
back now with about 4 feet. You can't really,
So 6 feet isn't enough. You would need all the way, which would be about 8 or 10 feet.
I would think you would need to go at least 8 feet or so to put anything back there at all. Otherwise, it's just as narrow as it's just about wide enough to put the AC compressors is about it.
Yeah, you could do that. That's a good place for that. Okay, so you're not willing to put on the property line. Okay, back to square one.
so you basically just want us
Yeah,
to
sorry.
consider this based on how it's shown?
It's shown on the property line.
It is shown on the property line.
It's shown on the property line, that's the thing. But you really want it on the sidewalk, or close to
The
it.
sidewalk or 2 feet off the sidewalk.
And I personally don't think 2 feet.
Yeah.
I would go over the sidewalk. So, someone want to make a motion, if you all agree to that? Okay. I know what you all think.
And I'll just say 2 feet off the sidewalk is what the guidelines, is kind of the standard in the guidelines. So I know that seems like an awkward little strip, but that's what's kind of typical throughout all our districts, is that people's fences are 2 feet in from the sidewalk.
Oh, really?
Aside from,
Okay.
for side
Yeah, it
fences.
seems like a maintenance issue.
I mean, it looks like some of these examples show like a 2-foot strip or a little bit of a strip between the fence and the sidewalk.
Nothing you can't handle with a weed eater. Okay. Can we move on this one? A lot of talk about sidewalk, a fence. Anybody have a motion? I don't know where we are in this. Linda's shaking her head.
I'll make a motion to approve HPCA 19-00114, item 2, relocate fencing, with the specific findings, as noted in the staff report, the unique circumstance that the adjacent properties have a similar condition to the proposed fence arrangement.
Is it at the sidewalk or 2 feet in from the sidewalk?
I'm going to suggest, and I'll ask the applicant on this, I'm going to suggest that we go with the guidelines, which say 2 feet off the property line. Is that acceptable? Okay, yeah. 2 feet off the sidewalk as guidelines suggest.
So that would be a
That's a condition.
condition.
Okay, so additional condition that the fence is located 2 feet off the sidewalk.
Okay? All right.
I'll second that.
Been moved by Klaus Ryman Phillips and seconded by Taylor Fudge. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Nay.
It's, I think the ayes have it. Okay, you've been approved.
Thank you.
2 feet off the sidewalk. Thank you. Next case.
HPCA 19-156 at 609 Northwest 18th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration of possible action on application by Katherine Montgomery, Preservation and Design Studio, for Kevin Mears for certificate of appropriateness to 7, remove cladding at front porch and install brick and wood columns and railings. Elective.
Good afternoon, Katherine Montgomery with the Preservation and Design Studio. My client, unfortunately, is at home with all the rest of his family members that have the flu, so I'm it today. We did, in light of the staff report, we did go out and do a little bit more destructive investigation yesterday, and I forwarded those comments to Katie. I don't know if you've received them.
I got your comments. I did not print copies for everyone. I
Okay.
was thinking you said you were going to bring copies. Okay.
I didn't know if you'd received them by email.
No, I don't think
Okay.
we got them forwarded to the commission.
So I'm here to answer any questions you might have or walk you through anything if you think you need it.
And I'll just note from the staff report, clearly the permastone is not the historic fabric. Clearly taking that off and going back to a more historic material would be supported by the guidelines. Staff just wasn't convinced whether the proposed design was the most appropriate, if there might be something more typical along the block or more compatible with the house. That was our only concern, was just evaluating the design for the brick and the columns.
So you're not opposed to removing the permastone? It's mainly the design of the new.
Right, just wanted
placement.
the commission
Yeah.
to consider the design.
Yeah.
Is it mainly this stained wood as opposed to painted wood that the city was uncomfortable with, or the staff was uncomfortable with, or is there other things that you guys were uncomfortable with?
So looking at the permastone as it is, you've got full height columns with a cast stone cap at the top. And that's not an unusual design that we see throughout the neighborhoods on these types of houses, with a brick column or pier that's a full height pier with a cast stone cap supporting the porch roof. And just the fact that there was that level of architectural detail in the permastone made staff think, well, maybe that's replicating the historic columns. To either side, you've got houses with full height columns, kind of a similar style. So we just thought that needed to be considered.
So, and there's no record of the original.
Well, we didn't think so until we were out there yesterday, and I think we found some compelling evidence to support the use of the shorter brick pedestals, because you'll see that there is some brick inside of the permastone, and it terminates at about the height of the knee wall, or railing wall, or whatever you want to call that.
Is there
that
one of these
shorter-
photographs that show that?
Yeah, if you'll look at page 3,
Okay.
you'll see, well, first let's start with page 1.
Okay.
You can see in the first photograph the 2 additional holes that were made, one on the south side, one on the east. I need to premise this also, that the permastone, the mortar joints are failing at there's a lot of them that you can just push these stones out. And the concern was that there was nothing else besides the permastone supporting that roof porch. So we didn't want to go in and do a big major demo job without having some direction. So we went in and did these little portions, and on page 2, looking through the south opening, which is the smaller of the 2, you can see some red brick to the left, which is the west, and the brick appears to be about the same height as the permastone knee wall. Then,
Okay, on that one, I don't quite understand. We're looking through the hole on the south,
yes,
and on the left side is,
the west.
okay,
Face.
what,
And that piece of wood looks like it might have been a post. It's severely deteriorated, and based on the deterioration, I think it's from termites. And then, so it's kind of leaning into the corner, the northwest corner. So the west side is brick, and the right side is the north face. This will become clearer in the succeeding photographs.
okay.
So the bottom photo on page 2 is looking through that opening on the east side, and you can see that it's kind of down lower. If you go back to the south one, you'll notice that it's about at the same level as the precast
Right.
on the knee wall.
Right.
So again, now you're looking at a bunch of wood debris. You can tell that those wood pieces look termite-ridden. And now we're looking toward the west. So the brick that you see right behind that bigger piece of wood is, did I say brick? Yeah, okay, so that's brick. And then a little bit you can see a little bit to the left, there's the permastone, which would be the south side. Then the photo on the bottom is pointing the camera up.
Yep.
And you can see the termite-ridden column and the opening in the permastone on the left, which is about at the same height where the material change, where the brick stops and the permastone goes up by itself.
Okay, so I don't see the brick stopping and the permastone going on up. I see brick going all the way up in the middle. Am I looking at it wrong?
That's permastone above that. See how it's kind of concrete colored?
Okay, up higher, I see. Right above the hole on the left.
Yes.
I see, so that's changing to permastone. It's hard to tell, but it does look like it's more white. Okay.
And we were also a little surprised that the bricks were, all even-toned red brick, which is consistent with those little sidewalls on the site steps. I mean, it's not a big deal. It was just, I wasn't expecting it.
Okay, so that kind of addresses the height of the brick.
Yes.
Of the
Even
brick.
though the houses on either side have columns that go all the way up, on one side I think that's authentic. I think that's the real appearance. But on the other side, the material is different, and I don't think there's any guarantee that that wasn't something else. Across the street, we provided photographs. Across the street, that was actually our inspiration. There are several houses right across the street in that same block span that have a variety of conditions, some of them that go up higher than others, and some that are lower. So that's how we picked. If you look at page 18 of your staff report, so 624 Northwest 18th Street, that one has the shorter brick. So that was kind of the inspiration and the direction that we wanted to go. As far as the stained column look, that's unimportant to my client. We're happy to make that paint instead of stain.
I would say I kind of agree with, staff's initial concerns. When I looked at this, to me, the full height columns seem like they would fit better. The kind of short brick columns with the wood just didn't seem right proportionally. It looks off. I don't know if they're too small. It's a pretty big, wide porch.
It seems like typically you'll see the columns or the whatever we call those pilasters taller than the one in the center. So maybe it doesn't have to go all the way up because there is precedent for not going all the way up. It does seem like the one that Katherine cited on page 18, the ones on the outside are a little higher.
And those wood kind of pilasters are a little bit wider and beefier too. I think.
And they're usually painted, so.
Yeah. So.
I don't know, though. I've got two issues there. I think just architecturally, Katherine, to me, it would look better if the outside columns were a little taller, including both sides of the driveway.
If we were to make them a little bit taller, as an example, 624 Northwest 18th Street on page 8, I'm sure the client would be happy with that.
I think that would look, to me, it'd look a little better, more, but that's the other issue.
What?
Painting.
Oh, yeah,
versus
no, they can be
staining.
painted. That's perfectly fine.
Painting's fine?
Paint is fine.
Okay.
So as far as the height, if we said, I think 624 Northwest 18th, looks great. I think that could be a good basis for design. if we made that a condition, would staff be comfortable approving that? Or?
Yeah, I think if that's the look that we're going for and the proportion, I think that's something that we can work out
Yeah,
between the applicant and staff.
it's very similar. And then the same height on both sides of the driveway, which is a little different.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
That would be fine.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve HPCA 19-00156. Let's see, item 7. Let's see, with specific findings noted in the staff report and with a condition to resubmit the column design to staff to ensure that the outside columns and the columns flanking the drive are slightly higher, similar to the example provided on page 18 of the staff report.
Okay.
Oh, and to paint the columns, correct. Thanks.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, been moved by Klaus Roman Philip, seconded by Taylor Fudge. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, been approved.
Great. Well, they're going to construct some, some temporary bracing to hold up the porch roof as they take down those permanent stone columns. And if we find something else, then we'll just keep in touch with staff
Okay, thank you.
in case anything would change.
Okay. That's
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you. All right, next case. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you want to come up to the podium?
Robert Haggard, are we going back to the consent docket?
That's been approved.
If you are on the consent docket, then you are approved and you're free to go. You'll get your certificate of appropriateness in the mail.
In 10 days? So like
Yep.
it says staff recommendation approved? So it's approved?
Yep.
Which item number, sir?
Which item?
Robert Haggard, he's good. Yep, you are all set.
You're,
HPCA 1900157.
okay. Katie
Yes.
says you are approved. You're ready to go. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, next case.
Okay. HPCA 19-159 at 724 Northwest 18th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Noah Mccarty for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace existing second-story addition at rear, Elective.
Okay,
Hi,
must be the applicant.
Noah Mccarty, 724 Northwest 18th Street.
All right, great. Okay,
So this is an existing non-historic, appears to be a non-historic addition. It is sitting on top of what was the back porch that has been enclosed and extends out beyond that. But this addition is not present as late as the 1955 Sanborn maps. And they wish to basically remove it and replace it at the same depth, but extending it to be closer to the full width of the house. And I believe we were able to get these pictures from, I think this is from a neighboring either backyard or from the alley. You
From
can't
the
see it.
neighbor's
From
yard.
the neighbor's backyard.
Yeah, you
Okay.
can see their truck right there.
So
Is
you can't see, it's mid-block, you can't see it from the street, but you can see it from neighboring yards, obviously.
is the new addition now basically the same dimension as the patio
As the patio?
or the
Oh, that's a sunroom.
sunroom?
Yeah. Well, yeah, so the depth will be 12 feet, and then the width, as it stands right now, is like 15, and we're just wanting to extend it east and west to the whole width of the house, which will make it about 30. So close to like 8 or 10 feet on the east, 8 or 10 feet to the west. But the depth is north and south. So what you're looking at is just kind of facing northwest. The depth goes north and south. That will be the same.
Okay, so I guess my question was, right now it covers a portion of the downstairs, the sunroom. It's a porch. On the new part, is it going to, it's going to cover, I'm trying to figure out what's under it.
Yeah, so that little canopy thing is basically the back door, and you walk in, and that was at one point a porch that somebody had enclosed. So when you walk in that door, immediately to the right is a bathroom. So what the sunroom that we're wanting to renovate now is essentially sitting on half of like an enclosed porch and also a bathroom.
Okay, so it'll come across to the left, have a certain distance from the edge.
So it'll
setback.
come across to the left, it'll cover that window that you're seeing right now. There's like one of those L supports that you can see that's kind of supporting the roof. It'll come just to the inside of that
Okay.
on both sides.
On the other side, is there anything under it?
No,
It's just over
it's just open. Yeah.
dirt.
There's also a door over there. I mean, we can enter through the back of our house on 2 separate doors. We don't really use that one, but if you walk in on the right side, there's a door and you're immediately in our kitchen.
Yeah, there is a deck and then a smaller set of stairs to the back door at the ground level
Right.
that they may come back later to rebuild some of that, the deck and the stairs, and replace
Yeah.
railing and that sort of thing. But right now, they just wanted
Yeah.
consideration for the addition itself.
What's a lally column?
It's like, it's those columns that you see right there. It's like a 4-inch piece of steel filled with concrete.
Okay, hadn't heard that before. A lally. Is that how you pronounce it?
I think so. That's
Okay.
what Google told me that they were.
It's a
And so,
steel column.
yeah, we can wrap those in some 1x6 wood or make them look more in line with historic columns. Or we could just use like a 6x6 wood post and then paint it. You wouldn't really need to wrap anything.
I'm definitely not fundamentally opposed to additions at all. The only concern I have here is that, it's a pretty big addition to just kind of, like visually kind of be hanging in the air, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you have the columns there. I would almost wonder, I don't know what the square footages would look like, and if this is even something that you would want to do, but it would almost make more sense to me just to add like a 2-story addition on the back that goes, first floor and second floor.
Yeah, we entertained that idea. The only thing is like, it's hard to see from the picture, but it's like you've got one plane where those 4 windows are on the sunroom, and then you come in about 4 feet, and then you've got the back of my porch that is enclosed. Then you go back another 5 feet, and then you see like another plane of my house. And so if we brought and enclosed the entire bottom down, because I asked this with my wife, and she's like, well, it would just be wasted space, because it's like you'd have 3 feet of just long hallway like behind a bathroom, and we talked back and forth like that's the only thing that could get this approved, would we want to do it, and it would probably be 30%, 40% more in cost, and just wouldn't make any sense inside the home to have that in our home.
I can see it being done with kind of like a little covered porch. I'm just not clear of the details. There's this one photograph on page 17 of 23 that shows column design. And the detailing of the columns and that addition is kind of important to make it look like it's part of the house. You wouldn't want to look like an add-on, just an add-on with the steel columns, obviously, but I guess I'm not clear about how it would be detailed.
And you're referring to the columns only?
Column, trim, all that
Yeah.
would be detailed, intersecting with a hipped roof, and then on the other side, just butting into the house, basically. Just
And
don't
maybe,
know.
maybe if it was beefier columns to really kind of enclose that bottom part,
Well, this whole thing about how it intersects, I'm
Better
just not
visually,
sure of the
right.
details, how it would work.
It to me looks like almost like with all due respect, like an inappropriate add-on right now, and by widening it, it just makes it a bigger inappropriate add-on, is what it feels like. And so I think
Yeah. It could be
hearing
done,
what you guys
as long
are
as it's
saying.
done right. I think you can make it look like it fits, but I'm just not sure with the lack
it just
of,
feels like someone took a box and stuck it on the second
For the
floor,
house.
and,
Now we want to
Right.
widen it.
which, it was done at some point, so, it is what it is
Sure.
right now, but yeah, it seems like to have this big horizontal box stuck on the back with, kind of some smaller columns holding it up, I think I think visually and kind of,
I think it could be done, just needs a little, I think it needs a bit more study on the detailing of the proportions of columns and trim and stuff, because it could look like just a big box.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I'm not opposed to beefing up the columns to make them 8 by 8 or just, we're not wanting to do anything wild. We could make it look just like that. We just really want the space. We bought this house with the 3 bedrooms upstairs, and that's a sunroom, with the idea of being able to do like a master closet, suite, bathroom, and all that, because that works for the size of the family. So on the inside, yeah, it totally works. On the outside, yeah, I get that it may not look ideal, but we've talked to our neighbors just to the east of us. We have the Coltons and the Todds, and then the west of us. I don't know if you know Michael Corey. He owns like Chartel Arms and everything to the west of us. They're all on board verbally, and you all kind of feel just it looks bad and kind of like it's fallen down how it is now. So what we're proposing would definitely make it look a lot better.
Well, I'm looking at your proposed south elevation. I just think that it needs more study as far as proportions.
this might sound kind of tedious, but I would suggest maybe just cruise around the neighborhood a little bit, and you might find similar examples of this where there's like a second story addition without a story below it, but maybe see how they did the columns and maybe find some good examples that you think you could apply here.
Yeah.
And then just kind of
And I've kind of done that, like whenever you see a house and you see like a little like pull-in driveway and it's like livable space and it's kind of held up by columns. I've seen some of that, so that's why it's kind of made me think, well, I feel like I can do this with columns, and I've seen the real nice ones with like 24-inch by 24-inch brick halfway and then like maybe 6x6 columns up the other half. And we're not opposed to doing that. We just feel like that's kind of overkill to be able to support this small of a space. My contractor's just saying 6x6 is all you need, but if we need to...
Yeah, what's architectural is proportion. I think you need to look at that. The other thing is your plan on page 9 shows the new addition, I think, set in from the corners on the east and west, which would be good because you don't want it to be flush because it needs to differentiate.
Yeah.
But your elevation on page that I just cited shows, and also your other plans show it flush. So it needs which one am I looking?
Are you saying
The west edge of your addition needs to be set in.
architectural drawing right there? It's
It
showing
needs to be
flush?
set in from the corner of the back of the house, too. So
like on page 11 of 23, you show on one side you have the 8-inch differentiation.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, there you
that's
go.
So if you just matched it on the other side,
Right.
you had 8 inches on both sides.
Right.
That's just where my architect made a boo-boo.
Well, just keep that in mind because I think
Okay.
we probably want to see more information on this.
So we can continue to February 5th or to March 4th. For that February 5th meeting, we would need all new documentation from you by Tuesday of next week.
That's the problem. It's a month in advance. So
Well, actually, this is kind of a long month. We could probably do the following Tuesday. We've got technically like 5 weeks in January, so January 14th, we'd need everything from you, if you
Wow.
think you can.
Well, so just so
Angela's
I'm
not here, so we
clear,
can get away with it.
yeah, he's getting a little late Christmas present here.
just so we're clear, you're referring to basically two things. The one thing is that over here on the west side, it shows to be flush with the house, and over here it's inset. And so I just need to clear that up with the architect, have him redraw this one picture.
Both sides need to be inset a little bit.
Yeah. So this one is, but he just didn't inset that one.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the second thing is my columns, you don't like the idea of just a 6x6 going all the way up painted. You
Well,
need something with more detail, or?
It's not just the columns, it's the proportion of the columns and then the depth of the room, and it looks a little spindly. So they need to look at the proportions of everything and it's kind of a subjective thing.
So
It
this,
looks to me like those columns are, right now, look long and thin. Maybe by making them wider, it will change it. But also detailing of trim, how are you going to make it blend with the house? I think that's important to see.
okay.
One thing to look at might be the front of your house. I know the front column, you have wrought iron columns that are, we assume, not historic, but off to the side. got full height masonry columns that go all the way up, and it looks like a side porch that has been enclosed at some point. So that might give you some guidance on kind of the massing for supporting that. And that's something, if you want, next week, we can sit down and visit, or if your architect wants to come in, we can look at it together while you're getting your material together.
I recommend that. That's always good to get together and just discuss it with staff.
Okay. Okay, so I will talk to him and see if he can make them look beefier and more in proportion with the overall size.
Yeah, and also the detailing the trim is important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm concerned about how it runs into that little hip roof on there.
Where are you looking at exactly?
That picture right there.
Like where it hits into the bottom rim joist, or?
Yeah, then how does that work? So I just need maybe a little more detail on the elevations would be good.
Okay. So other than that, like, there's not going to be, if I give you that information and then I show up at the next hearing and do this again, correct? Or are we going to kind of do this through email?
Right. You'd submit, happy to meet and talk about it, but then you would submit those revisions to staff, and then it would go back on either the February agenda or the March agenda, whichever one we choose today, and then you'd come back to that meeting to review it again.
Okay.
So do we want to go for, did you feel like you could get everything in by that January 14th date? And we go for February 5th? The commission has to specify the meeting to which you're continued.
Yeah, I mean, if you're happy with me drawing this out and making that little differential, because my architect may not be able to get to that, if I can do that, I can do that this weekend.
Well, we're also going to need information on the other things.
Right, and as far as the columns, I can drive around, take pictures, I can detail like top trim and size, and I mean, it's not quantity, it's just basically size and trim of the columns that you're looking at.
Proportion, design, yeah. The overall concept, we're not opposed, well, there were some comments about it, but if you make it fit into the house, I think we're kind of nodding our heads about it, so.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, just really making the difference between it kind of looking like it's hanging out in midair to kind of feeling like it's kind of grounded, ties the house.
Okay. Yeah, because by the time, I mean, that's 12 feet high to the ground, but those columns kind of go into my deck, so whenever you are looking at it, which, if you're in the alley or in your neighbors, like, you can't really even see, but right there you can only see 3 feet of those columns. But even if you're in my backyard, it cuts it down to like 8 or 9 feet because my deck's going to be up like 3 feet or so they won't be so long and skinny even after I do bulk them up a little bit.
Well, if you've got something, a deck or something that helps change the proportion, you draw that too, so we know.
Yeah, I kind of started to do that, and then I felt like they needed like all these deck columns and balusters and all that, and I was like, I'll just do the deck later if that's okay, and let's just do this. And so I felt like that was more for another time, but yeah, I might need to throw that in there just so you can kind of have an idea of the width, length of those.
Now, you could make the floor portion thicker even to help it not look so spindly. You could take the bottom of that, the soffit, down to close to the overhang level, and that would then line up.
Yeah, the only problem with that is whenever you're in the sunroom right now and you're walking in, you walk a smooth transition into another room. If I drop that down...
It wouldn't drop the floor, you could drop the soffit though, the bottom, not the top.
Gotcha.
So you could just make it a little thicker, and that would help the proportions maybe.
Yeah, no, I like that idea.
Okay. Something to look at. Hate to redesign it for you, but those are just some concerns that might help.
Yeah.
Well, and to me, the big thing is how it incorporates with that little overhang, that little roof that's on the first floor level there. I mean, that was, I think, Alan, one of the things you mentioned was how is it going to incorporate with that roof line on the first floor there?
Yeah.
To me, that I can't picture in my mind with it doesn't look like the site plans show how that roof incorporates. In fact, that roof is gone in this on page 7.
Yeah. I think maybe having a lower soffit might help it align and look a little bit more like part of the house. So, okay, we're anxious to see what you come up with next week.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, did you decide yet? Which one?
So I think he wanted to try for the February meeting.
Yes.
So continue to February 5th.
Okay. All right. Is there a
So
motion?
get you everything by Tuesday, which is in 4 days, Tuesday.
Well, I said we could go to January 14th.
Okay.
So we've
Got an
got
extension.
a long month, yeah.
I'll get them to you next.
I've never heard that one. Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to continue HPCA 19-00159 to the February 5th hearing date.
Okay, is there a second? Okay.
Second.
Moved by Klaus Ryan Phillips and second by Linda Schultz. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. It's been continued. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next case.
HPCA 19-165 at 626 Northwest 15th Street. Heritage Hills Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Reed Schindler Design Co. for Brian Carlozzi for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace driveway, elective, 2, install pool and mechanical equipment, elective, 3, install paving in backyard, elective, and 4, install brick walls, elective.
Okay.
Well, I'm Brian Carlozzi, representing my wife Rebecca and our boys as well at 626 Northwest 15th.
Okay.
I'll introduce Reed as well because he may speak depending on what questions you have.
you bet.
Reed Schindler, landscape architect and designer, and ready for any questions you guys might have.
Excellent. Wow, that's quite a backyard.
So just briefly, this is a pool, driveway, and some other landscape features in the backyard. They do have a fully transparent fence at a corner lot, so everything is to some extent visible from the street. That's why this is before the commission.
Existing fence.
Yes, existing fence is a wrought iron style fence.
Okay.
So.
Important to note too, the driveway, although the design looks big, is actually 170 square feet smaller than the current design, something to point out as well. The driveway itself is 1270 current. We're wanting to take it down to 1110, so 170 square feet smaller. At which point? No difference on the entrance. On ingress, egress is exactly the same.
On the side plan,
If you look at, there's a plan here, and it's laid over the survey. So if you take a look at that plan, you can actually see it. Sorry, you can see it highlighted underneath it.
the dashed line, yeah.
Yes, sir.
I think it was an error, but it says residence on the garage. That's a garage.
I just refer to any structure as a residence on my
You're a
plan.
landscape guy.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the existing garage.
Yes.
I understand that the strips in between the paving is artificial grass, turf?
That's correct.
To me, just a simple question, but one, it looks awesome, but does it fit? There you go. But does it fit the architectural fabric of this community? It's pretty high style and very cool, but does it fit?
Frankly, to me, I mean, you know, the pool's pretty far back, and you got kind of a short wall there, which I think is, you know, I think it's kind of nice to have that kind of separating your really existing parking space from where the pool's going to be. And really, at first I saw the paving, I was like, man, that's a lot of paving. And then I looked at, kind of like you said, with the existing paving, really isn't a whole lot different. And possibly, as you say, kind of west, that parking area.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with Taylor. I feel like, to me, it's almost like, why change the current drive consideration besides maybe chopping off that part that angles off and then, you know, filling in that corner?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And when we brought Reed out, that was our design. The problem is although it says elective on the driveway is gone. I have 4 feet cavities that are vacant. There's nothing underneath them. I think there'd be concern on even getting the equipment in there without the driveway actually caving in.
But you can still put the driveway back.
Right, you can put it back.
Just as it is.
Basically.
Or we just build one that fit
Yeah.
it, that's the same.
We're trying to tie everything in together, the new and the old, trying to bring everything to make it look like this has been there from the beginning.
My suggestion would be...
Just to speak on the design portion of it, just from the driveway isn't historical, it didn't go in originally with the house in that shape or what I can tell from it. So everything on the house is very, very clean and straight lines. And if it does have angles on it, it is a very calculated angle, and I felt like the driveway is not set up that way. So when we walked the property and saw the damage on the driveway, it was just kind of a first thing to try to tie all of the three together, the house, the pool, and then the driveway, to stylistically, represent the historical, but then also, have a little bit cleaner look to it like the rest of the house does.
Well, it doesn't really represent the historical. There is a historical driveway in Heritage Hills, and it's 10-foot drive or 8. Some are, but they're very small and very straight. This much pavement, do you need to turn around or on the?
Yeah, if you look, there's an extension already on the existing driveway. Mm-hmm. So, it's kind of taking into account of being able to pull into that garage and then back out and drive forward. Yes. So, if
that's not uncommon in the neighborhood, but you have to sort of back out. I mean, there's not a lot of space sometimes between the house and the garage. But this isn't a lot of. This is a lot of development for us, to be seen from the street. That doesn't really fit with any of the rest of the neighborhood design. I just think it's too much.
I agree with you because, we specify even sometimes that the drive and this paving needs to kind of match, the color of the surrounding neighborhood. This image is actually pretty great. I think I can perfectly imagine, the landscape wall a little bit farther back, and you got your pool in the back. Even if you change the paving to where you got rid of that angle piece and you had that corner filled in, I think I see what you're saying. I mean, I see it both ways. I mean, I know sometimes you got these weird garage configurations, and you got to be able to pull out, and
We do pull out. Yeah. I mean, we do pull out of our garages.
And I've lived in the house for 9 years. I've pulled out every day.
Yeah.
But I would say without, further evidence, I mean, they're not increasing the pavement for the drive portion. So I guess I'm not really concerned about the amount of paving in the front. It's more the design. It's kind of like garages sometimes. You want the garages to be secondary to the structure. And, you want like a more of a simplified garage. And to me, this is like a high design driveway or something. And I think it's, I don't think it would.
Are you saying reduce some of the turf lines inside it? Is that, I'm trying to understand what you mean.
Yeah, I'm basically saying if you take a look at the existing drive, like or I guess what was existing drive, because I guess you guys demoed that already. Is that correct? Or?
Sorry.
That's still there. The drive is still there currently.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, almost like if you, if you want to get rid of that kind of that angle part, cut that off, demo that. Fill in that kind of corner, and then just leave the driveway how it is. Right now it's not too, it's really not that visually impactful. It's just there.
Well, Katie, I can't remember, percentage of lot that needs to remain undeveloped or green?
Yes.
Yeah,
Can't remember.
our guidelines just talk about not substantially reducing the ratio of developed to open space. There are guidelines citywide for, basically you have to have 50% permeable surface or unbuilt space, which typically when you've got, I think Rita's pulling up our. So, yeah, typically if people have a front yard, they've got it. Mm-hmm. Even when you have a lot of built surface in a backyard.
I don't have any.
But I haven't checked those.
Well, I'm just curious
numbers.
what percentage,
Yeah.
how we're changing it's not necessarily open, it's just paved.
And I think a lot of that is considered, some cities consider the pool itself permeable, and some consider that a solid surface too, so.
I believe our pools are considered a structure, and it is considered impermeable because it's concrete.
Hopefully it's impermeable.
Yeah.
Well, we have a drainage on it, so
Yeah.
technically water's flowing through, but.
It's real pretty over here.
The pool is probably the least, it's behind the garage, it's hidden. It's the area that's visible from the street, it seems. Overall, there's a lot of new development, and it does, I kind of agree with Taylor that the design of it, though I like it if it was a contemporary house, but it seems kind of out of character
Suburban.
with well, I hate to even say that. It's contemporary.
Yeah.
But people use that word a lot. I don't know what that means. It's contemporary, but this is an historic area, so I don't kind of see it being as compatible personally.
I guess my take on it, what they do kind of in the back by the pool as far as the paving and the, if it's artificial or if you have real grass in between there, I have less of an issue with that. It's not really that visually noticeable. I just think anything in front of that landscape wall, kind of facing the street, I mean, you could pretty much just, slightly modify.
What do you call a landscape wall?
This, you see those little triangle planters?
Oh, on their new plan.
Correct, yeah. Anything in front of that, I feel like if that were more in line with what is existing now, even if you modify the driveway to the kind of configuration that you're talking about, I think that would kind of maintain the character that you have now, and then you could still have kind of the landscape design. I don't really have, I think it's nice. I don't have an issue with the pool or the paving around the pool necessarily. I appreciate that you're keeping the magnolia. I think that's really nice. That's a non-negotiable. For sure.
So the wall, you're saying the wall on the, that's kind of on the,
With the tree.
how to describe it, right to the, which way's north on here?
Where, if you would drive into the driveway, you'd actually run into the new
Yeah,
wall.
that wall with the little triangles is sort of your dividing point. And
Correct.
so
I
the
think that's
park-
kind of-
So the driveway and the park, the quote, parking areas should be simplified. Is that what you're saying?
I think so, because I think that wall,
Let them decide how to do it.
right, yeah, they can, but I think that wall is kind of nice. It kind
I like
of
the
creates
wall.
that separation and kind of divides some of the parking area from kind of the more
Yeah.
leisure areas. And
think-
you have some landscaping, so yeah, it kind of adds that soft barrier without being a 6 foot tall.
I think I agree with that, plus reduce some of the paving, I think would be, it just seems, to me, overdeveloped.
I agree. I mean, the pool is, I don't know where else you would have put it to be
That's the best place for it.
sensitive to the street. I think you were, and thank you for that. It's just kind of sort of over-designed for a historic feel from the street for me, and there's a lot of concrete. So I think if you just took a look at it maybe from that perspective,
Are you thinking
I
overall?
think it won't be that, it's kind of minor changes. True, you lose some drive, some
Are you
backup
talking,
space.
Linda,
but
overall or just the part that's adjacent to the street?
I think the view from the street,
So
I
the
think
part,
it's a pretty high design.
Yeah, so the
it's a
portion
pretty
that's-
high concept.
so the portion that's kind of visible in front of your wall, that's the part you're most.
I don't know. I wouldn't.
Okay, well, that's I kind of agree with Klaus on that.
Yeah.
I think if
Behind-
you're looking at this image that's up right now, with that little landscape wall,
Well, it's not there right now, but
right, if you imagine it there, yeah, I think, yeah, the tree would still be, you'd still see the tree. I think
Yeah.
you'd kind of maintain the character of what's existing. It's like you could have it kind of both ways. You can maintain the kind of historical character, but still have, kind of
so is
maybe
this
even a little
cl-
bit updated.
Is this
to it.
clear? So I guess we'd like to have you take another look at it, maybe simplify it a little bit, and think about the street side more being simpler, I guess. I think that's what I'm hearing
Yeah,
from everybody.
simplify the portion in front of that landscaping wall and see what you can do to keep as much grass there as possible, as opposed to the high design style that is there currently. But I guess I'm with my fellow commissioners over here, with the pool being where it is. I'm pretty comfortable with that part of the design, but having all of this visible to the street, I think it needs to be more cohesive with the neighborhood.
So if we go kind of similar, I think it was your comment on kind of cutting off that part and having Reed redesign this, if we actually leave a lot of the driveway intact, would we have to come back for the February meeting, or could we actually still try to do administrative approval through the department?
I'm not sure about what he was talking about, cutting off portion of it. I'm not opposed to a new driveway.
Can I come up there real quick? And just,
What's that?
Yes, I can
It's the
show you
parking
probably
area.
what he's talking about real
The
quick.
existing parking area.
That little leg that's coming out?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's the east.
Okay. I guess I'm just trying to say that I think you could put a new driveway in and change the geometry some, just not so big and not so, a little bit more historic looking. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm
we
not-
can generally administratively approve the replacement in kind of an existing driveway.
Okay.
That we don't think was put in illegally or anything like that. The pool will need to be approved by the commission, but it sounds like everybody's pretty comfortable with that at this point. And then we would just have to see what you come back with for a final design on the driveway and if it needs to come back.
So-
So what the commission could do is continue items 1, perhaps items 1, 3, and 4 to the February meeting or the March meeting. If we can come up with something that we can administratively approve in the interim, we'll do that, and you won't have to come back to a meeting. Otherwise, you've got a meeting date to shoot for.
That works?
So you could approve the pool, this is just theoretical, what you said. 2 is the pool, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and if we could, during construction and stuff, the pool is the first portion that would go in.
Yeah.
So theoretically, we could get going on the pool portion and come back at the February meeting. That'd be very, very easy to do.
Okay. And that'll be continued to the January,
We can do February 5th, or we can do, if it's February 5th, we'd need everything from you in just about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Not quite 2 weeks, or we could do March,
Yeah, we can definitely get it.
February.
all right. Okay, is there a motion then?
All right, then I'll make a motion to approve HPCA 19-00165, item 2.
Okay.
Let me see about the
This
staff
one.
comments.
Trying to see something about the pool.
Does it say anything about the pool? Also
7?
make the specific finding.
8,
Yeah.
7, 8.
8.
10,
11. 7, 8, 10, and 11.
Yeah.
As noted in the staff report.
look right? Okay, is there a second?
That?
Moved by Klaus, Ryan, and Phillips, and second by Taylor Fudge. All in favor? Aye. Okay, item 2 is approved.
Then I'll make a motion to continue HPCA 19-00165 to the February 5th meeting, items 1, 3, and 4.
1, 3, and 4. All right. Okay, second. Anybody? Moved by Klaus, Ryman Phillips, and seconded by Taylor Fudge. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, 1, 2, and, no, 1, 3, and 4 are continued. Okay, thank you. Look forward to seeing your revision.
HPCA 19-167 at 222 Northwest 16th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration of possible action on application by Anna and Nathan Bradley for certificate of appropriateness to 1, remove chimney on rear slope of roof, elective.
Hello?
Hi, yep, I'm Anna Bradley, homeowner, and new to the neighborhood, and we're wanting to redo the kitchen, and that chimney stack is, in there and taking up space where we could have a nice pantry, kind of floor-to-ceiling cabinet built around our fridge, and it would make the kitchen more functional. And then on the second level, it's where the hall bathroom is, and so we could just also kind of have a bigger, more functional hall bathroom.
Okay, anybody else have comments on this?
We don't have any jurisdiction on what you do inside the home, so what you guys want to do in there is great. I'm wondering, can you keep the chimney as a decorative piece only on the outside of the house? Would you guys be comfortable keeping the chimney as a decorative piece, if that's even doable? And then basically leaving the outside of the house sort of intact and as is.
Yeah, well, so we just had an architect stop by this morning to kind of look at things. I guess my question is, that's a lot of weight, the brick. would it be feasible, since it's really the clay chimney topper that's so unique, like, could you do I don't know, a lighter brick on the wood until the chimney, replicate that brick up to that height and then put that clay pot on top? Because that's really the only thing you see from the street.
Yeah, we had
It's so
one.
much weight that I guess we'd almost have to have, I don't know.
It can be done inside the attic. It's not horribly hard to do. We had one come up similar, and so we didn't allow that, replacing with another material. Problem is,
Oh, they did do another material?
we didn't allow it.
Oh, you
They
didn't
wanted-
allow it.
They wanted to do it out of something more lightweight. It's visible from the street. To me, it's more decorative than most service chimneys, which are in the back of the house. It's more decorative. So I would, it seems to be more important to the house than some house service chimneys that are small and not visible. So I wouldn't be in favor of removing it.
Yeah, I do think it's a really unique feature to the house. I know it's kind of, it can be a nuisance sometimes to try to find a way to work around it. I still think, just from an architectural standpoint, I think it's kind of fun to have these kind of quirks in these old houses and finding a way to integrate, the old chimney into the design of the remodel. I know it's not always convenient or the easiest, but I do think it's a significant feature of the house. I mean, it's clearly visible from the street. And that clay chimney topper is pretty neat. So.
Well, and our guidelines are pretty clear on whether or not we can remove chimneys, and they say that we cannot. And so I really struggle with doing away with it. But if there's a way to keep it and do something interesting on the inside of the house, that works fine.
And we don't have.
I was just going to say, to the kind of structural rebuilding, shoring up question, as has been said, the commission doesn't review anything on the interior of the house. So if whatever is under the chimney goes away on the inside and it's supported from, from below, then that's not something that we would review. Similarly, we really don't review the structural aspects of how things are built. If someone comes in and, rebuilds, let's say, a porch, and maybe it was constructed with, weight-bearing masonry, and they go back and construct it in a different way, we don't look at that. So if there's a way to reduce the weight of the chimney while it still remains a brick chimney with the clay chimney pot, I think all of those are things that we're not going to.
And that one, if we leave the exterior as is, but take it out inside with the reinforcements, that doesn't need approval?
If it's on the interior of the house, it's not going to come to us for review.
Okay.
Well, I didn't understand that. Just for clarity, Katie, if you don't mind, what did you just say about materials? I mean, what were you trying? I didn't understand. I want to be sure that I didn't understand you to say that we would not care if they changed the brick material.
No, we want it to remain a brick chimney with the clay pot. What I'm saying is,
So this-
whatever goes into, this brick. I
Okay.
mean, if the chimney needed to come down and be rebuilt, that's another matter, and that's something that we review and approve rebuilding chimneys as well, because that has to happen sometimes. I'm just saying we don't review the structural elements of what's supporting the chimney on the inside, however that's done.
Okay. But that brick, that clay pot, just roof line up, staying the same. We do whatever we want on the inside, and I don't need approval?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything above.
Okay.
You might need approval from someone other than us, but
Right.
not.
Structural engineer, my architects will look into it. No. Okay.
So it sounds like that's
It'd make
Denial.
a really neat wood-burning, like a pizza oven, my husband thought, if we do take it down, right?
Do it.
I'm just kidding. I was kidding. If you're going to vote yay or nay, I was just like putting that in there for...
No, it is pretty neat. I mean, it's a nice architectural feature for sure.
Yeah. This sounds-
So the commission can deny this, or you can just withdraw it if you want to withdraw it.
Because you're going to deny it.
That
Okay.
seems to be the,
Then I'll just withdraw it. Okay.
So, okay, thank you. Withdrawn? Do we need to do anything? Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, on to the next case.
HPCA 19-00168 at 1005 Northwest 38th Street, Crown Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application by Michael Smith for certificate of appropriateness to, 1, construct shed if elective. Actually, I think it's required at this point because it's there. 2, construct retaining wall
Required.
as stem wall for fence elective. And 3, construct fence elective.
So one is required,
Yep,
not effective either.
right.
All right. Hello.
Good afternoon. I'm Mike Smith. I'm the owner.
Okay, the address? Could you state your address?
It's 1005 Northwest 38th Street.
Okay, great. All right, so we have the shed. Background on this, Katie?
So the commission has previously approved construction of a garage at this property. It has not yet been built, but it would be in front of the shed that you see in the picture on the screen. They do have an effective CA for that and anticipate constructing the garage.
We
In the
will be
meantime, the shed
starting
is-
next week. They'll
Okay.
start this, the pad, taking the old pad out that's all cracked. So
You're starting on the garage next week?
next week.
Right, okay, great.
So in the meantime, the shed has been installed, and sheds of a certain size don't need a permit, but they do still require a certificate of appropriateness because of the height, because of the cladding material, the roof form. Staff didn't feel like we could administratively approve this, so it's before you today.
But we do, or you do, approve sheds.
We do have guidelines that allow for administrative approval of sheds, and those are all cited in your staff report. We tend to, once they get beyond a fairly modest size, we tend to bring them, when they get up to closer to a garage size, we tend to bring them to the commission for review. Because when they get that big, they also get tall and that sort of thing.
Is this shed permanently mounted in the ground, or is it on skids? Or
It's on skids.
on skids, so it's really not even permanent? Not really permanent,
No,
yeah. So it could be moved. even.
So we have neighbor comments too. I don't know if you guys.
yes.
So there's some additional information, right, for this case?
You do have, yes, you have a handout at your seats that the applicant turned in this week. I'm not sure exactly when you first sent it. Angela's been out, so I believe you'd submitted a packet to Angela.
I did this afternoon, and
Okay.
she printed it
Okay.
for you.
So it's a lot of information in there that staff hasn't had time to evaluate, some of which is a change in the design to the shed, and some other.
Let me just kind of run through it succinctly.
Sure.
So maybe we'll have a better idea. First of all, I am embarrassed, but I didn't think of getting a CA before I ordered the shed. Somewhere in my head, it said, oh, you don't need that for the backyard. And so here I am now. So that's what started this. I have in my handout, I went through on Google, and of course I couldn't look at any of these places because they're in backyards, but I did on Exhibit A1, I did a look at Crown Heights only, at where I could see accessory buildings that were besides, not including garages. So I've listed those and the sizes where the assessor's website listed those. The ones that say estimated or approximate are not listed on the assessor's website. So it appears there are some large accessory buildings in the neighborhood, some larger than this. And after I was called about it, and I did talk to I talked to Christine Eddington, I realized, oh, okay. So one of the things I'm willing to do is to turn it north and south, where there would only be the slender side towards the back of the house. In addition, you'll address the materials that it's constructed from. As you can see, it's a 50-year paneling. It's a particle-type paneling, and I am willing to reclad it with the hardy board that the garage will be constructed of. That's an approved material. In addition, the windows are vinyl, and I've looked those, and I can install wood windows in that shed, and I'm willing to do that also. And I understood from Angela maybe that the gambrel roofing is part of the, hey, we don't like the look of this. If necessary, I will change that from my gambrel to a gabled roof to make it look more like, if that's part of the problem. Those are the things I think I can do to maybe make it fit better in the neighborhood. And that's what I detailed basically in this handout and some the materials.
Is the shed a permanent solution, or is this just in place until, is the shed a permanent solution, or is it just in place until the garage
I
is
would like
built?
for it to be. My purpose is to have a workshop where I can do my hobbies.
Sure. Okay.
Katie, could you kind of reiterate the guidelines on accessory structures like this? I know it's not, I guess, technically permanent maybe because it's on skids. I know it'll be, obviously not from the neighbor behind, it won't be invisible, but from the front of the street, you'll have the garage in front of it. So the neighbor behind would see it. Of course, if you turned it, that'd be a smaller face to the neighbor's backyard. But I guess, have you spoken with Greg and Christine Eddington on notating it?
I spoke with Christine. We didn't talk as much about the building as we did item 2, the fence, but.
Gotcha.
I actually thought they would be here today, but apparently they couldn't make it.
Just to kind of summarize the guidelines we have for accessory buildings, not including garages, there's some allowance for very small sheds, less than 6 feet in height, that can be installed without a certificate of appropriateness at all. And then most of the guidelines do fall under administrative review. They talk about the appearance and location being based on historic precedent for a shed, if there is one. Sometimes we can look at sandboard maps and see where there were accessory buildings in the past, but those obviously aren't always shown. We do kind of know there's a pattern to where accessory buildings are located in the backs of yards, and this, I would say, is in where we would expect a shed to be located. We look at it talks about appropriate materials for the shed, and then it be secondary to the main building and secondary to the property's historic garage, if there is one, following side and backyard setbacks. The guidelines are not nearly as specific as some of our guidelines for things like garages and additions when it comes to size. So, as I said, we've tended to just kind of estimate when it gets over a certain threshold. When it's approaching the size of a garage, bring it to the commission, as well as looking at the height of it.
So fundamentally, let's say he already had the garage. If you wanted to add the accessory structure, it wouldn't necessarily be not allowed in the guidelines, but we would review it independently for kind of compatibility.
Yep, we would look at the materials, at the height, at the location of it, roof form, that sort of thing.
In that case, I mean, personally, I think some of the solutions you've described, just personally, if I were to analyze this kind of independently, even with the garage, the fact that it wouldn't be visible from the street, especially with the roof that you're proposing, kind of the gable roof, I don't think, as long as it complies with materials and the roof shape, I think it'd be, in my opinion, I don't think I'd have a problem with it really. I mean, it's secondary to even the garage. I think actually if Greg and Christine, if you've spoken with them, I don't know about your neighbor to the side, because obviously if you turned it 90 degrees, the other neighbor would have a longer facing
Yeah.
wall to the garage.
I don't see that, why that makes much difference.
I don't know, yeah.
You know, there's one more option that I really hadn't thought of, and that's to move it up as the way it's sitting now, and to move it up directly behind the garage. And what I'm willing to do is talk to Greg and Christine about their preferences, if that's something. And
Maybe we should continue it then.
Yeah, especially with the change of materials.
Allow you to talk to the neighbor and maybe we should continue it then to allow you to talk to the neighbors and submit a drawing with a roof line change. That might be helpful, so.
Now, there are drawings in there of it with the roof.
Okay, which page is that on?
It's not in the staff report, it's in the new submitted materials. But yeah, I think if it's continued, then you have time to discuss with.
B1, and
I think we should continue it.
Okay.
And we may be able, as I said, staff hasn't even had a chance to look at what was submitted. We may be able to administratively approve it with
Okay.
those changes. But if we continue it, that gives us time to consider that.
I'm only hesitating because they're going to start on the garage, and it will then become rather more difficult if y'all don't approve it and I have to get it out of there.
Yep. Okay.
That's
That's
my
February.
quandary.
Yeah.
Okay. So motion on that one to continue item 1?
To the February 5th, is that the consensus?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
I'll make a motion to continue HPCA 19-00168, item 1, to the February 5th hearing date.
Okay, is there a second? Moved by Klaus Ryman Phillips, seconded by Taylor Fudge. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 1 is continued.
Then we have 2 other items, construct retaining wall as stem wall for fence and construct fence on top of the retaining wall. And I think the main concern with this was that the fence on top of the retaining wall was potentially going to exceed 6 feet in height, which is the limit for fences along the sides.
Okay, where would the retaining wall go?
In my revision that I submitted, I've asked that be changed simply to move the north fence back to the property line. Basically, I think what happened is there was a chain link fence on the opposite side of the fence that's there now, and someone wanted to put in I'm sorry, I'm losing the word, stockade fence, and they simply moved 2.5 feet south and built the fence, and then someone took the took the chain link down. So because of the expense with the shed, I would not be able to do the fence. So I just need to revise that to move the fence that's currently there, repair it as necessary, move it back to the property line.
So that's something that we should definitely be able to administer.
Right.
So
Okay.
to be able to administratively approve,
Then-
I think we can continue those items as well, and then we'll get that from
Okay.
your documentation.
That's great.
And can administratively approve that.
So 2 and 3.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so I'll make a motion to continue HPCA 19-00168, items 2 and 3 to the February 5th hearing date.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Klaus Ryman Phillips, seconded by Linda Schultz. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, items 2 and 3 are now continued. That's it. Okay, we'll
Thank
see you
you.
next month. Thank you. All right, on to, is that the last one?
That was the last
Okay, last but not
certificate of
least.
appropriateness.
Okay.
We
on-
have a whopping 5 items under other business, which
Okay.
is not typical, but we
Yeah.
have 3 home sharing applications, the first 2 of which are actually in the same building, so we can kind of discuss it all as one, and then we'll need 2 separate motions. But BOA 14686 at 809 Northwest 20th Street, Apartment 811, Mesta Park Ward 6, consideration and possible action to provide a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment on a request for a special exception to the use in Historic Preservation District to allow for home sharing. And because this is a multifamily building already, they have to get a special exception for each unit where they want to do home sharing, and there's 2 units that they plan to do that. So that's why you have 2 different BOA numbers, 2 different applications for this.
Is the owner present? Okay. Okay, if you sign in also. Sure. State your address. So is there 1 unit upstairs and 2 downstairs?
There's actually 4 units. The
Okay.
ones that I'm wanting to rent on a short-term basis are the ones on the west side, up and down.
Okay.
Do you live there, Ms. Bennett?
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
So you're going to want to stay as an apartment, you'll live in one, and then you'll.
That's right. Long-term person is staying
Yeah.
in the bottom right-hand.
Okay.
And I may decide to change that at some point, but since I'm doing this and I'm recently a grandmother, I am using this person to kind of help me keep an eye on the property.
Yeah, okay, I understand. Okay, since there's really no change to the property, and it's already multifamily, doesn't seem like there's a lot.
It seems like the major guideline here is that you're an occupant
Yeah.
of the building as well, and it seems like
I'm sorry?
I think the major consideration here, as far as it relates to us, is that you're an occupant of the building, which you are. So.
Yes.
And staff is recommending approval, so I don't have any issues with it.
Okay, we'll make that motion. Anybody else have comment first? Okay.
Can we make a motion to approve both, or do we do separate motions?
Separate.
for each item? Okay,
Separate for each item.
gotcha. I'll make a motion to approve BOA 14686.
Actually, we're recommending it.
Or, I'm sorry, recommend approval of BOA 14686.
Okay.
Yeah, with the items listed and stuff.
Okay, is there a second?
Excuse me. Do we need to say that, do we need to have any kind of conditions around that, like as long as they're the owner is residing in that property, or do we recommend a certain length of time?
Isn't it in the findings?
Well, the requirement that the owner live there is in the ordinance. So they would be granted the special exception with that tied into, it's not allowed if they're not residing there, according to what the code already says.
And it's also in the findings.
Yeah, I think it's in the,
3, E3.
yep, that the owner's intention to live on site at the time of rentals.
I'm just saying forever is a long time.
Yeah.
That's what I think about as we go through this learning process on home sharing. And the other is,
There's no time,
there's also no number. The numbers can dramatically change. It can go from 4 to 15
what? 4 to 15 what?
apartments.
Well, they're approved for a certain
I'm not talking
number.
about this one. I'm just talking about if we're going to have parameters, but that answered my question. If you think they're there already, that one about
It's in the
being
findings.
a resident, I
Yes.
think it's a little vague.
Yeah, I think, the requirement is that within HP districts that you be a resident, that it be your place of residence. I understand what you're saying about the numbers. We've talked about that with particularly with larger, say a large house, that once they're allowed home sharing, there's nothing that says they can't divide that house up into a large number of units. I think in a case like this where it's already an apartment, you're maybe a little bit more covered on that basis.
So aren't we just proposing to allow 1 unit with each one of these? So
It's a special exception to allow home sharing
yeah.
within each of these units, but that doesn't define how many can stay in the unit.
So
let's say a unit had 2 or 3 bedrooms, you could rent each one of those out as a separate.
Unit being sort of like an apartment. Okay. All right. So you could, okay.
But you can limit it to one person. We could do that, to one.
Yes, I mean, I think you could include that in the recommendation that each unit should serve as one rental unit. Board of Adjustment has also been approving these fairly regularly with a time limit, that the special exception is good for 2 years or 3 years, not the full term limit.
Well, the reason is that it is a process by which we're all learning exactly what the impact will be and exactly how they'll be used and exactly, a lot of things. But I didn't know if we should, if they expect us to recommend those sorts of things to them, those kinds of restrictions, or because we haven't in the past. Okay. I'm okay with it.
Okay, I didn't realize they put time limits on this, so.
I think the special exception is good for 10 years. Is that
Okay.
right? I had not heard that part. For some reason, I thought there was an expiration for it, but they've been limiting it to much less than that. Generally, I think they've been doing that when there have been protests.
So we're really just reviewing it for, again, as it applies to the neighborhood and meeting the requirements from a neighborhood standpoint. The Board of Adjustment would put the technical.
Right, yes.
Some requirements too. My mic doesn't seem to work, but, did it work? Thank you. It can't exceed 30 consecutive days per rental per guest. So there is a parameter for that, and it's in the staff report.
There's a hotel. It could be.
It's,
And I think the reason for the cautious approach, at least that I would say, is that while one apartment that is home sharing doesn't have a huge impact on the neighborhood, if you had 200 of them, then there would be no neighborhood. So I think that it's just a cautionary to be accommodating and to not, not to be an impediment unnecessarily, but also to be aware that we've not done it at this scale before, and so we'll be learning what truly the impact on neighborhoods are based on our own experience and not others. Okay.
So, it would be kind of interesting that as more of these develop, you start getting quite a few of them. That would really be different than.
I definitely, share your concerns. I think what was actually a really good compromise in this whole discussion is the fact that you have to be a resident of the property, which kind of ensures, if it's a single-family house, you couldn't ever Airbnb it. So let's say a neighborhood like this is 50 or 60% single-family house. I mean, all the multifamily, whether it's a longer-term tenant or a short-term tenant, it'd still be kind of that same arrangement. So I share those concerns for sure. I know that there's stories of other cities where tourist districts kind of get turned into all rental, and that is a concern. But I think a good compromise is reached with this ordinance.
I think it is too. I mean, it's bigger than a bread box. It also eats up, affordable. Well, I mean, it has a lot of prongs that we don't quite understand yet. And even if we said we supported, limiting the terms to less than 10 years now, I don't know if we're supposed to transmit that kind of recommendation to them.
Are we? Or should we?
I think, I think that's a valid concern and a valid point, and I think you all can pass those recommendations along if you feel like it's appropriate.
So standard is no more than 10 years, so we'd have to pick a number. What would we base it on?
Well, and I'm sorry.
I think 10 years to me is probably okay. I mean, the standard, how would you base? 2 years, 5 years?
Right.
They've been doing 1 and 2.
What?
Yep.
1 and 2
years?
Yes, I think they've approved a lot with a 2-year. 1 year is awfully short, and before you know it, you're turning around and applying all over again. But 2 years seems like a reasonable amount of time.
What do they base that on? I'm just curious.
I think in large part it's been in response to concerns from neighbors, which we didn't have anyone protest this. So,
If there's a concern, I guess it could be, let's try it for 2 years and see how it goes, kind of.
yeah,
Well, I
they
think
can
that
come
it
back
gives
in
a
2
chance
years
to
and
review the
reassess.
total
Yeah,
impact.
reassess,
Have
right.
there been a lot of complaints? Have there been problems?
Yeah, okay, so we could pass it with the recommendation, that'd be limited to 2 years or something. So, I'll do that.
Yeah, so we did not approve item A yet, correct?
Correct. So
Right,
if
we
you
didn't
wanted to go back and amend it, then the movement would amend it, the seconder
Right.
would.
Yeah, we had it moved and seconded, and then we
Okay.
had discussion, so you would need to amend it, and Taylor would have to accept it.
Okay, well, I think that's a fair consideration since it is new and we need to see what the impact is. So let's, I'll make a motion to amend item A under other business, BOA 14686, to reduce the term limit of the special exemption to 2 years.
Okay, Taylor accepts that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. It's recommended with the time limit.
Then I will recommend approval of BOA 14687 to the Board of Adjustment with the same considerations, the items listed in staff report, and a 2-year term limit.
Okay.
I'll second.
Oh, we got 2 of them now. Been moved by Klaus Schreibenfeld and seconded by Linda Schultz. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. It is also recommended. And on to the next one, which is different.
BOA 14696 at 1708 North Francis Avenue, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action to provide a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment on a request for a special exception to the use in the Historic Preservation District to allow for home sharing. This is a garage apartment. It is a newly constructed garage with apartment. It did replace an existing garage with an apartment. I do not know the exact age of that garage apartment, but it was existing and it is in the city's system as having a separate street address, which tells us that at some point in time, at least, it was established as a separate dwelling. And they've applied to be able to do home sharing in the garage apartment.
It's like Mesta Park is a hotbed for Airbnb.
Yes.
And full disclosure, this was a project that I worked on previously, but we've completed that project and I have no current interest with the
You're not going to live,
applicant.
you're not going to live in it?
I know. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Seems pretty simple, same issues. So,
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of BOA 14696. Send on to the Board of Adjustments for special exemption to use the back garage as a Airbnb for Historic Preservation District.
you want to put a time limit on it like we did the last one?
I wouldn't put a time limit on this one because it doesn't have multi-tenants.
Just
So
one.
I guess I would just let this one go on to the BOA and go from there.
I'd put a time limit on it. I mean, we either believe that we should review them in 2 years or not. I mean, that's kind of, I don't see the difference.
You want to see, say in 2 years, the overall impact on the neighborhood of Airbnb. That's valid, no matter what it is.
I'm certainly happy to add a time limit if my fellow commissioner would like that.
Okay.
And we can recommend that as well,
Of-
for a 2-year time limit.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second?
All right, it's moved by Taylor Fudge, a second by Linda Schultz. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. That one is also recommended. Oh, I'm sorry? Would you like to come up to the microphone and introduce yourself and name and address?
My name is Andrew Diaz, and I am the owner of 825 Northwest 16th, which...
The last one?
Yes, this, well, the building actually has a property address of 1708 North Francis, but the house
Right.
is 825. So my question is on this issue of the time limits, though. It's, I don't know, I mean this respectfully, but it sounds like we're overstepping our boundaries in this part.
We're making a recommendation. The Board of Adjustments will make the decision. So I
Right.
probably ought to go to the meeting to
Right, yeah, I mean, you know, if I get, all right, yeah, like I said, I don't want to, don't mean to get into a big argument. It just seemed a little funny that, I mean, if the ordinance has already been set, then the point of HP, in a way, my understanding is, okay, we've presented this now, we've had an opportunity for neighbors to,
Right.
you know, to protest.
And so if you read that, there's a 10-year maximum. You know,
Right,
now.
which would be, which would be understandable. I mean,
So all we're saying, and apparently the Board of Adjustments has been doing this, we
Sure,
would like
just-
to reassess in 2 years, because we're not sure what the impact will be on the neighborhood. And that's really our concern, what's the impact on the neighborhood?
no, and I think we all agree with that. I mean, we don't
Anybody
want to
else
have a negative
comment on
impact like that, just.
That's what I think we're trying to say.
Well, and I don't know, what are the notification of how many neighbors do you do? Do you just do?
I think it's 1,000 feet.
Well, I mean, that's hardly any neighbors, really. So over a 2-year period.
That's a decent size.
But over a 2-year period, we'll have an opportunity, and it may be nothing. It
No,
may be
I
a
get that,
simple matter for you,
but I guess what would happen
another
is,
permit.
what would happen then, like for myself and the other people who come through this, is it another process like this, another $300 application to get all this approved and all? I mean, it's, all right, the $300 is the thing, but some of the stuff we ask for is kind of, you know.
But we're just trying to balance that with
Right.
the neighborhood. We don't know what's going to happen. As somebody said, what if we had a whole block full of these? You know, it would be a different story in a few years. But so we're just trying to balance that. But
Right.
go to the Board of Adjustment. That'd be the
No,
decision.
plan on to, all right. All right, well, thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank
Appreciate
you.
that.
Appreciate you making those comments.
Yeah.
Okay, now on to Preserve Oklahoma City.
So last month, you've all, I think, heard the plan, a number of different venues. Last month, we presented it briefly at the close of the meeting, and today it's in front of you to adopt a resolution that provides a recommendation to Planning Commission and City Council, that Planning Commission adopt the plan and City Council receive the plan. It also has this commission adopting the plan and the position on historic preservation within.
You want me to read it? No, just kidding.
No. I will if you want me to, but I'd rather not, because I'll probably catch all my typos. So
Well, I think we're all in favor of this. Would anybody like to move that we adopt the resolution? Would anybody like to move we adopt the resolution? Okay, there's a second.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved by Taylor Fudge and seconded by Klaus Rahmen Phillip. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it is adopted, and I just have to say again, good job on that. Okay, and then
our final other business is to elect a vice chair, since Mila is no longer in her position.
yeah, and this has been rigged, so Linda, did you have something you want to
Are
say?
you opening the floor to nominate? I'd like to nominate Taylor Fudge.
Okay.
Is there
There's
a
only one
second?
other person to second it, so.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Congratulations. So you'll sit over here next time. I won't be here, so it'd be, no, I'm just kidding.
Alan's going to take the next 2 months off.
Next
so.
3 months. Yeah. Okay, on to communications and reports. Nothing?
I
Commissioner?
will report, we don't have it down here, but under Board of Adjustment, the appeal for the proposed demolition of the house in Heritage Hills East, 104 Northwest 20th, was heard and kind of automatically continued because the attendance at Board of Adjustment was such that they needed to have a unanimous vote, and they didn't get a unanimous vote. So that automatically continues it to a future meeting. It has been continued again because there is a deal in the works for the property to perhaps change hands. So we'll keep you posted on what happens with that, but it's right now on hold.
Okay. Withdrawals, none. Administrative closures. Administrative closure, what's that? C.
Those are, we usually don't have too many on here.
Just one.
Those are applications that either were approved and then never turned in required documentation, or an application that was never even heard because we never received the documentation.
So it's just now closed?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, so it's not denied, it's not withdrawn, it's just a staff way to close them out when they're not moving forward.
Okay.
After a set amount of time.
Can they come back?
No.
Okay. All right. Sorry, Floyd. D, City Council, nothing. Board of Adjustments, nothing. Planning Commission, nothing. Ad hoc Committee, don't have anything. Anything from Municipal Councilor? Okay. Next regular scheduled meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission is February 5th, 2020 at 2 p.m. at the Municipal Building, City Council Chamber, right here. New applications for this meeting were received December 31st, 2019. New information on projects continued from today's meeting to the upcoming meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, now January 14th? Because you let them have an extra week. January 14th, 2020. Angela will not be happy. 2, the next regularly scheduled workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, March 11th, 2020, from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at 420 West Main, Suite 900. Any items from commissioners? And anything from, oh, sorry.
The status of the neighborhood committees, weren't you going through some sort of process with them, recertifying the neighborhood advisory committees?
So we're supposed to do kind of an annual review with them. We had reached out, Angela had reached out several months ago and gotten pretty minimal response from neighborhoods. So we haven't been working on that since the last meeting, but it is something on our kind of to-do list for the start of the new year to contact each of those neighborhoods. If we've got a contact for their review committee, to get with them, and if we don't have anyone, to work with them on getting someone appointed.
Yeah, talk about that. If you're still having issues, that's where I was going on this. If you're still having issues, maybe we can talk about that at the workshop, and perhaps we can be of some help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Any citizens to be heard? Okay. All right. There being no further business, we are adjourned. Thank you.